When I first pulled my tiny home into Maplewood Estates, the looks I got could have curdled milk. My little 320 square foot house, built on wheels. Solar panels glinting proudly, didn't exactly blend in with the rows of manicured lawns and identical beige 2 stories. The moving truck barely stopped before a sharp-faced woman in a floral visor marched up, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me," she said, adjusting her sunglasses. "You can't park that thing here. This is a community with standards." Her name tag read Karen Whitmore, HOA President. Figures. I smiled politely. "Actually, Karen, I just bought lot 19. The HOA bylaws allow structures under 400 square feet if they meet code." Her jaw tightened. That clause was meant for guest cottages, not trailers. "Tiny homes," I corrected. That was the beginning of what the neighbors later called the Great Maplewood War. Karen rallied the HOA, sending letters about property values and aesthetic uniformity. She even held emergency meetings to discuss my unsightly dwelling. I, meanwhile, just installed my rainwater system and planted wildflowers. The irony was that I'd left city chaos precisely to escape this sort of judgment. I was an architect, burned out from designing million-dollar homes for people who never smiled. My dream was something simple, sustainable, mine. Karen, however, made it her personal mission to restore order. She started fining me for imaginary violations. Roof too reflective, grass too natural. Mailbox not community standard. Every morning, she'd watch from her porch with a mug that read "Number 1 Neighbor." Every evening, she'd take photos of my yard, like a wildlife researcher tracking a rare species. But the funny thing, while she obsessed over me, others in the neighborhood started getting curious. A couple down the street asked to tour my home. Then another. They couldn't believe how spacious it felt: fold-out furniture, smart storage, modern finishes. I designed every inch myself. Soon, I was hosting weekend tours. And a local blogger wrote, "The future of living, how one tiny home is turning heads in Maplewood." Karen was livid. She posted in the community forum, "This is not a circus attraction. We will not tolerate this hipster nonsense." But the tides were shifting. People were tired of HOA pettiness and rising costs. My house wasn't just a novelty, it was a statement. Little did Karen know that unsightly trailer would soon redefine what it meant to live well in Maplewood. And when that happened, she wouldn't be laughing. It started with a crack in Karen's perfect facade, literally. A storm ripped through Maplewood one humid July evening, tearing shingles from roofs and flooding manicured lawns, while her designer gutters overflowed. My tiny home stood dry and powered, thanks to its elevated design and self-sustaining systems. The next morning, as neighbors dragged soggy furniture to the curb, my house gleamed untouched. People gathered around, amazed. "How'd you keep the lights on?" someone asked. "Solar," I said with a grin. "And a battery backup." That moment planted a seed. Suddenly, the weirdo with the trailer became the only person with working electricity. I brewed coffee for half the street while Karen's husband wrestled with a dead generator. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Within weeks, residents started asking me for advice. Could I design rainwater systems for them? Help cut energy bills? Even Karen's closest allies, Susan from Lot 8 and Greg from Lot 11, stopped parroting her complaints. But Karen didn't surrender easily. She doubled down, claiming my solar panels violated reflectivity standards. I attended the next HOA meeting, standing before a semicircle of grim faces. "This isn't about rules," she said, tapping her clipboard. "It's about preserving our neighborhood's image." "With respect," I replied. "Your image costs thousands a month in maintenance. People here are tired of debt and waste. I'm offering solutions." The crowd murmured. For the first time, Karen's authority cracked. Soon, Maplewood buzzed with change. Residents built raised gardens. Kids helped me install compost bins. I even started hosting sustainable Saturdays, teaching small workshops. My once unsightly lot turned into the community's heartbeat. Then came the TV crew. A regional network wanted to feature the eco-revolution of Maplewood. I agreed, on one condition. They'd highlight the homeowners making positive changes, not just me. When the episode aired, Maplewood became famous overnight. Property values rose. Realtors bragged that the neighborhood was leading the green living movement. Even the HOA had to acknowledge it. They quietly updated the bylaws, adding a clause for eco-friendly modifications. Guess whose house they used as the model? Karen didn't attend that meeting. But later, I saw her walking her dog past my yard, pausing for just a second. Her expression softened, not quite a smile, but close. Progress, I thought. She might still hate my tiny home, but Maplewood didn't. And the best part? The revolution was only just beginning. By the next spring, Maplewood had transformed. The same neighbors who once whispered behind hedges now bragged about composting and rainwater barrels. Even the HOA newsletter featured green home tips. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. But Karen remained the lone holdout. She'd stopped talking to most of the neighborhood, retreating behind her rose bushes like a queen in exile. Every once in a while, I'd catch her watching as cars stopped in front of my house, real estate agents, journalists, even architecture students. Then came the call that changed everything. A developer wanted to feature my design in a national showcase on sustainable housing. They offered to buy the design rights and use my home as a prototype for an entire community. The deal: 7 figures. I nearly dropped the phone. When word got out, Maplewood exploded with pride. Our neighborhood's going to be on TV again. You're putting us on the map. Everyone celebrated, except Karen. At the next HOA meeting, she tried one last stand. This is getting out of hand, she snapped. All this attention, it's ruining our privacy. Karen, Greg interrupted. Property values have doubled since the last feature. People are lining up to move here. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she had no comeback. A week later, an appraiser visited my home. The results stunned everyone. My tiny house, once mocked as an eyesore, was now valued higher than any property in Maplewood. The efficient design, media exposure, and sustainability certification skyrocketed its worth. When the news spread, people gathered outside, cheering and taking photos. Someone made a meme. HOA Karen laughed, now she pays more property tax than the tiny house. It went viral. I should have felt triumphant. But truthfully, I just felt relieved. One evening, as I was tending to my garden, Karen walked up. No clipboard, no visor, just her and her little white dog. I misjudged you, she said quietly. I thought you were mocking our way of life. But you built something real. I smiled. Thank you, Karen. It was never about proving anyone wrong. Just about living right. She nodded, then looked at my home, sunlight catching its metal siding. It's actually kind of beautiful. For the first time, I believed she meant it. 5 years later, Maplewood barely resembled the place I'd moved into. Solar roofs shimmered in the sun, gardens lined every lawn. And the HOA's annual report proudly declared sustainability, our new standard. And at the heart of it all stood my tiny home, now a local landmark. School buses stopped by for eco-education tours. Architecture magazines called it the little house that changed suburbia. Karen even became an unlikely ally. She'd stepped down as HOA president, but stayed active in the community's sustainability committee. She started growing her own vegetables and hosted a neighborhood swap meet every month. Sometimes, she'd joke, "Guess I'm the reformed villain in your story." I'd laugh. Every good story needs one. What had once been ridicule had turned into respect. People from nearby towns came to learn from our model. The state even recognized Maplewood as an eco-friendly living district. But my favorite moment came one crisp autumn morning. A new family moved in next door, a young couple with a prefab tiny home. Almost half the size of mine. As they pulled up, nervous and uncertain, Karen herself walked over first. "Welcome to Maplewood," she said warmly. "You'll fit right in." I couldn't help smiling from my porch. Later, the developer who'd licensed my design invited me to speak at a national conference. Standing before hundreds of architects and city planners, I told them the truth, that change didn't start with money or policy. It started with one person refusing to apologize for dreaming differently. When I came home, I found a note in my mailbox. It was from Karen. "Thank you for teaching me that. Progress doesn't destroy community, it builds it." I framed that note and hung it inside my tiny home. The walls might have been small, but they held a story bigger than I'd ever imagined, a story of defiance, transformation, and unexpected friendship. In the end, my tiny home had become more than just a house. It was proof that greatness doesn't need grandeur, just purpose. And as I looked out over Maplewood, blooming greener than ever, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes, the smallest spaces hold the biggest revolutions.